The Raven on Blu-ray from 1935. This is day 2 of 31 of my 31 days of horror. I saw this was another movie suggested by the Edgar Allan Poe story, and I immediately was just like, yeah, right. So I definitely wasn't expecting a faithful adaptation, which it wasn't because a character in the story is actually really obsessed with Edgar Allan Poe. So it actually ended up making sense. But look at this poster. This mustache guy on this side and this side. This guy gets himself twice on the poster. What a maroon. So, from the first logo shot, you could tell the huge difference in this movie with like the restoration versus the Black Cat. Like it looks a lot more clear and you can see the tingly grain. There's a lot of like perma scratches though that looked like they just kind of smudged them out. So it's almost like you can see the scratches down the middle, but they're just it's like they've been erased or something. They're like fuzzy. So there's also a lot of shots that seemed like they were just filmed out of focus. Um, so I think they looked as good as they could with the 2K scan. And like I said, I think it definitely looks better than the Black Cat. But there's quite a few shots that are just super soft. Um, again, like it just was not in focus. Here's what I mean by kind of the perma scratches. You can kind of see it right here. So if you follow this line right here, do you see that? So that's kind of what I mean by perma scratch is that it looks like there was a scratch there and now there's just kind of like a tingly blurry spot there. So I guess that's better than a fine scratch, although I might rather have the scratch than that kind of weird thing because I think that thing's more distracting than an actual film scratch because having watched a lot of movies on film, it's actually a normal part of it is to have those moving scratches. So I'm not sure what restoration tools they used on this 2K scan, but it seems kind of older because a lot of newer restorations don't do that.
A very curious hobby. It's more than a hobby.
All right, creepy AF Bella Lugosi. So this is the guy who's obsessed with Edgar Allan Poe, and he's just sitting here telling this guy that he's got torture devices in his basement that he's built, and this guy's like, "Oh, what an interesting hobby," and he's like, "It's more than a hobby." It's like, "Oh, okay, that's normal. Okay, good night. See you later. I'm definitely not calling the police." So I always thought Dracula's voice as Bela Lugosi that he or Bela Lugosi as Dracula. I thought that that was like some like Transylvania accent or he was talking weird because he had like pointy teeth or something. And it turns out that's just like his cadence of voice. He's like Jim Kirk with the weird voice cadence. So now every time I see him in these old movies, and the way he has this da 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 da, like his voice, it's like it's just Dracula being in different disguises. Speaking of the audio, so it has DTS HD Master Audio 2.0, I believe, mono, and I had to turn it like way up to be able to hear it good. And you can hear it fine, but I had to go like way up. Now this part is probably one of the greatest bits of plot and dialogue. So this really good doctor here has just saved this guy's daughter in surgery because she had a car accident. So he saved her life. And now she's kind of starting to fall for him, which I'm sure he's fine with because he appears to just be a single dude. And listen to so this is her dad. So listen to what he says to him to try to dissuade him from being interested in his daughter who might be interested in him. Let's see if it passes the sniff test of reality.
You disapprove yourself, Dr. Vallum. You don't want a young girl like Jean falling in love with you. Dr. Vallum, I came to you once.
What a terrible thing. You older single man. You don't want a young girl like Jean falling in love with you? Icky. Why would you want that? It's just like, are you serious? Like, have you seen her? He's like a single dude. Like, what a stupid line. He's like, you don't want that. That's awful. And like Bela Lugosi's just like, yeah, I kind of do. So it's kind of a stupid plot point, and I couldn't help but like laugh and shake my head on this part. You just want to be alone forever. What use would you have with a young lady? Not gonna lie, I saw this bearded guy, and he was doing something shady at a table, like he was getting some shady job, and I was like, oh, he's getting hired to go kill someone or something. And he's sneaking around in this hat, and I was like, oh, look at that scruffy beard. This is like some extra. He's gonna get captured by Bela Lugosi. He's gonna get taken in his basement and tortured or whatever, which I guess is kind of true. But I thought he was just like some no-name person that was gonna be like the initial kill to kind of get stuff going. But this is freaking Boris Karloff with a beard. He looks awesome in this movie. And speaking of him, these movies are not great. But when it's Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff and they're going to be like facing off, like I get excited because they're both really, really good. And just like Kirk in the 60s Star Trek, or like William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy, like they just go full ham. And on their face, when you're watching the show, it looks like they believe that they're in that situation. And so I can follow along with them, even though it's totally ridiculous. And that's the same with these guys. They're in the dumbest situations, in the most like floppy sets that just look like a repeat of so many other old horror movie sets. But because these guys are into it in their faces, I can follow along with them. And when I realized it was him, I was just like, yes. And something crazy is going to happen to him. Look at that. Look at that Karloff face.
First, you must
Look at him.
like what?
He looks great in this.
You're lying. Trying to get me into
Look how
trouble.
his eyes are so expressive. Both of them have act with their eyes really well.
Gag out of his
Actually,
mouth and starts here.
Speaking of people that act with their eyes, I think a modern actor that's really good with acting with his eyes is Mel Gibson. He has like Conspiracy Theory, for example, amazing eye acting like these guys. All right, he's a runaway criminal, so he has to have face surgery. Here's the big scary reveal. The building music. Oh my gosh. Actually got really loud on this part. I thought we were going to wake the kids up. Here he goes. Ah! He's terrifying. I'm throwing up in the 1935 theater. Look at him. Look at it. Women and children run screaming.
It's hard. Dog.
Anyway, he's got this big old like rubber thing over his eye, so his eye just stays open the whole time. And then his mouth is all droopy. Anyway, and then he shaved his beard. I think he actually had a real beard for this movie. It looked very real. It's not the greatest high definition image, but I think it to me it looked like a real beard. Anyway, he's so good at like changing his face and then acting. I guess disabled is a good word for it because his face has been disabled. But he's so good. I love these two together. Such a good combo. I'm excited for the rest of these Universal Classic horror movies because I think these two, if I understand right, are in a ton of them together. You hear that? He's doing the Frankenstein noise. So you got Bela Lugosi up there being so mean and laughing at him in his maniacal laugh, which he has down. My goodness, he does it a handful of times in this movie. But I just wanted to show Boris Karloff straight up doing his little growl that I swear it almost sounded like a soundbite from Frankenstein. His little it's like such a weird monster noise. It just sounds like he's driving a car around. So he invites a bunch of people over to his creepy torture house to sleep over for the weekend, and they all agree. And so we're getting to meet all these people that are going to be in this basically like Agatha Christie type moment, except for there's not death. There's only one death, really. I was kind of expecting more deaths, but anyway, that's all besides the point. Look at this thing. So this, you can't see it because it's blurry, but it's like a little horse racing gambling table to where, so once it stops, you'll see that all these are horses and they all move around. Like they must each have their own independent track. And so you can actually place bets on the different numbered horses and then you watch them racing. And I think that's probably the coolest toy ever. And I know it's a gambling thing, but what is that? Is that a thing? Like, it's so cool. Look at it.
Come on, number 5.
Number 3.
See, there they are stopped. Look at that. Look at all the horses. Isn't that cool? Totally distracted me from the movie. So by far my most favorite part and most favorite like special effect. And there's a good handful in this movie. There's the cool makeup, there's like the swinging pendulum blade, there's a lot of miniatures. There's like a miniature car accident, some miniature trees getting blown over in the dark and stormy night that inevitably happens in all of these movies. And there's like a trap door in the floor that someone can come out of. But this part right here is so cool and reminded me of the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, and you'll see why in a second. But he's got like this control board, because you can't have one of these scary movies without a giant control board that may potentially blow the place up. But he's doing all these like conniving switches. He's got like, his house is like robotic, not robotic really, but it just has all this automated stuff, which is 1935, is pretty dang sci-fi and cool. But watch, he throws this switch here, says elevator, and her room starts shaking, and it's like, what is going on? And then watch what they do here. Look at this. They just start lifting the camera straight up. So it looks like it's the room's lowering. And then this part, I was like, oh my gosh, how are they gonna do this? So here's what I've determined. So that's her room lowering down. I think it's either a platform with a projector screen on it. But like it, okay, the platform is either actually coming down and there's a projector screen on it that was pre-recorded because it looks a little fuzzier. And anytime you layer like special effects, like if you have a special effects layer of film and then a normal layer of film, that it just gets murkier because you're like stacking the film cells on top of each other, right? So yeah, I think what they did is they either I think they did it on screen. I'm not quite sure. So it's either literally on screen, they projected it onto something, but I don't think that would work. So I think they had to just record it and layer it or something. I would love to know how they did this part where it looks like her fully dressed room comes down an elevator like the Haunted Mansion. So very cool. And then eventually it switches to where they can walk through it. But that first shot you can tell is a special effects shot, and that is my favorite shot in this whole movie. There's a lot of cool, interesting camera things, but that by far is so clever and creative. Here goes the automatic shutters. And this made me think of The Purge, where they have to close their houses. And I just, watching these old movies, oh, this is the best, listen to this line.
It's a steel shutter.
Is it? Hey, way to go, guy. Nice observation. It's a steel shutter. What else would it be, dork? Anyway, it's cool watching these old movies and seeing possible inspirations for future movies. Like there's a part when they're putting on under anesthetic that they have to put the mask on, and the guy puts it right over he puts it right over the camera, and so it's like a POV mask, and it reminded me of the Weird Al music video. I think like a surgeon. Anyway, and then you have this iron curtain that comes down over the door it reminds me of like the movie The Purge, where once a year they can do whatever they want that's bad, and so people lock themselves in their houses. So it's just interesting seeing these little, it's like, oh, this movie did it first, right? It's 1935, so there's not much before it movie-wise. So it's cool to watch the future inspiration of movies from this, and it's hard to believe that they would not have been inspired by stuff like this.
I'll soon
Look at his acting madness.
And I'll be the sanest man who ever lived. I have a pleasant surprise. Bateman.
He's awesome. He's such a fun, like hammy, scary, horror, crazy actor, and I look forward to seeing. Hopefully, we can see him in some more different roles. Like he was a little bit heroic in The Black Cat, and so I hope we can see him in different roles, not just maniacal killer all the time. But he's great. Like his just that little sentence that he said, and all of the different facial expressions that are happening. He's so good in this. So these guys are in a closing wall room.
You've done nobly, Bateman.
So they're gonna get crushed. Here they are on their realistic drive.
Yes, darling.
He saved us from being crushed, all right?
Yes.
That's what he says.
I think I better finish the job, don't you?
Of crushing her?
Only a little more gently.
Gently crushing her? Gall, surprised that made it by the freaking code people of the day. That's like an aggressively like innuendo. That's like saying like nailing someone or something, like, because they almost got crushed to death, and then the guy rescues them and people get shot. Or anyway, I guess there was 2 people that died in this movie. Anyway, and then he's like, well, I better finish the job, but do it gently. And it's like, dude, that's gross and dark, and like, this is very weird innuendo at the end of this movie. But of course I enjoyed it because it's weird. But this movie was, I'm glad I watched it. I think the 2K restoration's great. I won't be seeking further restorations if they restore it anymore. It's fun to own it. It's fun to have a collection of these wonky old black and white horror movies with awesome classic actors and cool foundations to future movies. And honestly, it's more entertaining than what's coming out. A lot of what's coming out nowadays. So anyway, this has been an overly long review of The Raven from 1935, suggested by the Edgar Allan Poe story, aka has nothing to do with it. But the characters in the story, or the doctor, super obsessed with the author, so it worked actually. It was fun. It was fun that his whole house was like this big scary murder and like puzzle kind of a place. So it was kind of cool, and you can definitely be inspired from this to make other houses that kind of have trapdoors and elevator rooms and scary stuff going on. So anyway, this has been day 2 of 31 of my hashtag 31 days of horror for October 2023. So stick with me for more like this. This is about how they'll go. So if you like this, then jump on board and we'll go. So thanks, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.